First things first, until August 15th, you can still late pledge GeekNSon's Gwyn Gaming Table campaign. It's a super great deal as you can get a Warhammer-sized game table that'd be large enough to handle anything you throw at it with a bunch of free extras for almost $1,000 less than this smaller table here. It's a really great deal, so check it out in the link in the description to see if that's something you're interested in doing. Spoiler for the review, but I really like this table and I get no commission for clicking links, but I imagine they'll be happy to see my video helped you make a decision. Now this review is specifically covering this table you're seeing right here. This is the Megan medium-sized table that they offered. It's a previous version. They have their new one, the Gwyn, out now, and it comes in a lot other sizes, small and large. So just know this is for this specific table, but you get to know the general craftsmanship and kind of design process, shipping, all that as well. So stay tuned for all that. This table feels solid. Seriously, it's a very nice quality item, so let's get that straight right off the bat. It's made of oak and metal. The oak is not easy to dent or damage, and there's no cheap coating to scratch off of it either. Interacting with this table is always a joy, and the craftsmanship is readily apparent. It's also just designed in a really smart way. The small legs are sturdy and fantastic, allowing for a very spacious feeling for chairs. Size is a bit small for my medium-large to large games and entirely unusable for my largest games. Get the large if you're spending the money unless you're hurting for space or have no interest in large games. I often use a normal game of Warhammer 40,000 as a test bench. If it can handle Warhammer, it can handle most anything you throw at it. This is sadly not big enough for that normal Warhammer mat size of 44 inches by 60 inches, but of course this is a medium-sized one as well. They offer their tables in a variety of sizes and they definitely have ones big enough. One nice bonus is that the table leaves are included. On top of that, one of the tabletops can be reversed. They actually all can be reversed, but one has some recesses for tokens and counters, so you have that as well. The leaves are nice and not too long or too heavy and are actually super easy to deal with. You're not going to be breaking your back changing these out. These leaves also include a water-resistant padding and finish to help prevent spills from getting in. However, they have these gaps, so any real big spill will just pool in there, and then when you remove the leaf, better soak it up first. Speaking of which, these gaps hurt the viability of playing a game on the top, which is something I think many end up doing either for convenience, added space, or to enable playing a game with one still stored underneath. Smaller dice, for instance, will stop dead in their tracks in these gaps. Removing these leaves is easy thanks to the little button thingy. You push up from the bottom and it pushes the edge of the end leaf up so that you can grab it. I have noticed a small scuff mark that's naturally forming from using it, however. A bit too much wiggle room on the rod causes this. This table actually has a few other really cool built-in features that I'd like to talk about as well. It has a built-in inner rail system that is good for holding cards, a player board perhaps, or a few other things you can actually end up attaching to it. This does add a bit more to the reach into the well, as you got to reach over it and then down into the well, but nothing I found uncomfortable, and it's nice to have this the whole length of each side. Things like this can help alleviate table space, which is always welcome. And then there's the outer rail system for all kinds of add-ons, from cup holders to wireless phone charges to board extenders to put your player boards on, cards on, etc. Just note that anywhere you put these, no one can sit at that location, so it starts to limit things after a while, I imagine. Now, I imagine because they didn't send any of these for me to test, sadly. I'd love to tell you whether or not they are easy to put in or take off, if they wiggle a bit, if they're easily knocked into, if they stand up to some pressure applied to them, and more, but I can't. Not really in my control. If I get them in the future, I'll add my findings in a comment, so check there for one. There's also a really cool bottom floor of wood, offering 3 places to play games. The very bottom can actually store RPG stuff like a map, or just cards even. They sell an acrylic layer that can go on top of this for just this reason. Then there's the mat, and then the top of the table as well, so that's neat. It also makes the bottom of the well quite sturdy, and there are good support beams in place. While I didn't quite test it to this level, I imagine you could stand on the floor depending on your build, and it distribute that weight quite nicely. Speaking of which, I've stood and walked all over this table quite a few times now. I actually do this with both of my game tables all the time because I suspend lights above them that have no remote to turn them on and off, so I hop up there to turn it on and off for filming. Normally you'd probably judge me for that, but for now I'm claiming it's to test the product, and I must say it holds 200 pounds with ease. By comparison, the game theory table flexes if I don't stand on a corner of it, because there's really no support in the middle at all. So props to GeekNSon for being stand-worthy. I should probably add that I don't condone standing on the table. That sounds like a liability nightmare. If there's one bummer about these 3 features, it's that there's a small gap between the bottom floor wood and the inner rail. While I didn't have this problem, potentially if you use it a lot, a tiny piece might get stuck there or fall through. You might be realizing that I'm nitpicking, and that's what most of these are, just nitpicks. It's a solid and well done product. There is one very large concern I have that I'll mention at the end, so I'll hold off on it for now. Just know that it's coming up. The fabric layer above this is a good color, has some cushion that has some small pull tabs that makes putting it in and out super easy to do. Sadly, these tabs are also unsightly, and because of how they are sewn, they pretty much always stick up. Additionally, when I first got the table, there was a weird fuzz residue all over it. Rubbing your hands on it would cover your hand in it. It looks perhaps grosser than I think it is because it's just some fabric fuzz, but you'd see this stuff in the air floating around after a wipe down until I purposely cleaned it all up. Also of note, while the padding and fabric are nice, they are not really as nice as Game Theory Table's fabric. My understanding though is that no company is as good as their fabric, and so that's kind of fine. It's actually pretty good. This is always up to personal opinion, and it's a balancing act. On one hand, you want the table well deep enough to add the topper on and save any game you want to play, including miniatures. But on the other hand, a deep well becomes awkward and uncomfortable to actually play with as you have to reach over and down into it. I've shown the actual measurements on screen, but I find those kind of pointless without context, so here's some context. I could store a Warhammer 40,000 Terminator in the well and put the cover on as long as their shoulders were the highest part of them. This was the absolute maximum. For Conan here, I could store the entire game, but larger monsters like the snake can't even be tipped over and stored and need to be actually removed. My personal preferences based on the games I tend to play and my tendencies to be okay reaching for things, I'd like the well to be a bit deeper, but not everyone will align with that, so make your own call on it. Alright, we're getting close to the end here. The table was super easy to build. There was a bit of finagling with the screws thanks to the inner rail protruding out a little bit, but no heavy lifting and everything fit in perfectly. One issue though was that the actual screws and bolts were missing. It literally fell out of the pallet at some point before reaching my home. Here are some pictures of how they send the tables. This is their pictures. The saran wrap is not too thick, and as the heavy table boxes jostle around ever so slightly, they can do it more and more and more and eventually break free. Mine was in pretty rough shape. Additionally, several of the boxes were damaged and opened. As you can see, this caused several points of damage on the corner of the table, a dent, and a scratch. The cardboard box itself is not very thick or sturdy, and the padding inside is very minimal. There was also a broken off end of one of the screws that literally fell out when I opened the box lid. Talk about not a great first impression. Compare this to Game Theory Tables, who uses more padding, much sturdier boxes, and a more tight and secure way of keeping the boxes in place. They even delivered it into my garage instead of out on the driveway where it could potentially get wet or otherwise damaged. Note that this specific image I'm showing you is from their YouTube video and is not my actual garage. That's because when you actually receive it from Game Theory Tables, they have a little QR code you scan and it says, hey, upload some pictures so we can see exactly how it arrived, and you do that and you check it in, then they know it was delivered, and if there's any damages, you're not liable and stuff because they saw exactly how it arrived. There was no such process here. Now, I contacted GeekNSon about this, but even me, someone they are working with as opposed to an average consumer, one of many that they have, got pretty slow responses. That's actually what prevented this review from coming out so soon. Not only did I need time to actually use the table and all that, but I was waiting to see what the response was. How's their customer service? How is it, I got a damaged table, how do they deal with that? They claim to be providing some accessories at some point, maybe next month, to compensate, but they won't be replacing any, obviously, the damaged parts. They say that's just not really practical. So hopefully I can at least update the review here with testing these soon, but it still means I have a table with visible damage on it. Keep that in mind. Of note, I hear they operate much better in Europe where they actually deliver things themselves. They're the company doing it. Here in the US, they contract it out, and from what I hear, it's a lot more hit or miss. A fellow patron of mine has been struggling with delivery of his table, which is a great quality as well, for a very long time now. The logistics in the US delivery is quite lacking, it seems. It's a crying shame, really. The GeekNSon table is so much better than the Game Theory table when it comes to overall design and the wood and the build quality, but the shipping has the potential, only the potential mind, to permanently affect the end result and is their single largest area they need to grow, I feel. Luckily, that's actually a super easy thing to improve. If they can nail that down, they have an absolute winner here, even with the blemishes. I love this table. Overall, this table is absolutely fantastic and a joy to interact with. The single largest issue this product faces is thankfully something easily solved before they ship out more, and it's just that, shipping and damages. If it wasn't for the damage to the table, I would have an almost universally positive review here. It is a really great product, and as long as you get it to you safely and you get it to yourself nicely, you will be more than thrilled with your purchase. Again, there is a link down in the description below to their Gwyn crowdfunding campaign. Go ahead and check that out. It is crazy. Like, I'm serious. You can get the Merlin size one that can handle Warhammer very well. It would be a fantastic large gaming table for almost $1,000 cheaper than this one that you're seeing here. It's a really good deal. So go ahead and check that out. Again, that's in the description below. That ends August 15th. But of course, this review can stay up as long as it needs to be. I will update it if things change around shipping. I will update it if I get some more information or some more time on the accessories and the rail system. But until then, guys, have a great rest of your day. Take care. Ask me any questions you want in the comments below. I'll be there talking to you guys. And with that, have a great one. Take care, guys. Bye.